Germany has fewer people than Egypt, less land than Canada, yet its economy is bigger than dozens of countries combined. So how do we actually decide which country is rich? The answer is one number most people hear but don't truly understand: GDP. When people talk about the world's biggest economies, the same names always appear: the United States, China, Japan, Germany, India. But have you ever stopped and wondered, how do we measure an entire country's economy? How can small countries be rich? And why do some fast-growing economies still feel poor? All of this comes down to GDP. In this video, you'll learn what GDP really measures, how GDP is calculated, nominal versus real GDP, GDP per capita and PPP, the strengths and flaws of GDP, and how countries actually increase GDP the right way. Let's break it down simply. What is GDP? GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. Gross means total, domestic means inside a country, product means goods and services. So GDP is the total value of all final goods and services produced within a country's borders over a specific period, usually 1 year. Think of a country like a giant bakery. GDP is the value of all the bread, cakes, and cookies sold in that bakery over the year. But here's an important rule: GDP only counts final products. The flour used to make the bread is not counted separately because it's already included in the price of the bread. This avoids something called double counting. What counts and what doesn't? If a country mainly sells raw materials and doesn't produce finished goods, those raw materials are counted as GDP because they are the final product in that country. But raw materials are usually cheaper than finished goods. That's one reason countries that manufacture finished goods often have higher GDP. Another key point: it doesn't matter who owns the business. If production happens inside the country, it counts toward that country's GDP, even if the owner is foreign. How is GDP calculated? There are 3 official methods to calculate GDP. Even though they look different, they all describe the same economy, just from different angles. 1. Production approach. This method adds up the value of all final goods and services produced. Simple and direct. 2. Spending approach. This is the most common formula. GDP equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M, where C is consumer spending, I is investment by businesses, G is government spending, and X minus M is exports minus imports. Every dollar spent becomes someone else's income, and that's why this method works. 3. Income approach. This adds up all income earned from production: wages, profits, rent, taxes minus subsidies. Same economy, same result. Simple example: a bakery sells 10 loaves of bread at $3 each. Production value is $30. Spending value is $30. Income earned is $30. Different paths, same GDP. Nominal GDP versus real GDP. Now, here's a big problem with GDP: inflation. If prices rise but production stays the same, GDP can look like it's growing even when it isn't. Nominal GDP uses current prices. If bread goes from $3 to $4, GDP increases, even if the bakery makes the same amount of bread. This can be misleading. Real GDP removes inflation by using constant prices from a base year. If production doesn't change, real GDP stays the same. That's why economists rely more on real GDP to judge actual economic growth. Comparing countries, PPP and GDP per capita. Comparing countries using total GDP alone doesn't tell the full story. That's where PPP and GDP per capita come in. GDP at purchasing power parity, PPP. Prices differ across countries. A dollar in the US doesn't buy the same as a dollar in India. PPP adjusts GDP based on local purchasing power, not exchange rates. It helps answer this question: how much stuff can people actually buy? GDP per capita. GDP per capita equals GDP divided by population. This explains why Singapore feels rich, Indonesia feels poorer, even though Indonesia's total GDP is larger. GDP per capita shows average economic output per person, not salary, but a rough indicator of living standards. Why GDP is useful. GDP helps measure economic size, track growth or recession, guide government and central bank decisions. 2 quarters of falling real GDP usually signal a recession. GDP is simple, widely used, and easy to compare. That's why it remains so popular. The big problems with GDP. Despite its usefulness, GDP has serious flaws. 1. It ignores informal and unpaid work. Household labor, volunteering, black market activity, none of this counts, even though it has real value. 2. GDP can be distorted. Some countries inflate GDP through tax havens and profit shifting. Money passes through, but citizens don't benefit. GDP doesn't measure well-being. A country can have high GDP, but high inequality, corruption, poor healthcare, low happiness. GDP measures production, not well-being. How countries increase GDP the right way. The fastest proven path to growth: attract foreign investment, increase production and jobs, use growth to invest in education, build strong local industries. This is exactly how Japan, South Korea, China, Singapore escaped poverty and became economic powers. Conclusion: GDP isn't perfect, but it's the best tool we have to understand how economies work. If you understand GDP, you understand why countries rise and why they fall. If you found this useful, like, subscribe, and comment what topic you want next.